Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hutsy's Huddle. In this video, I give my Grey Cup playoff predictions for the 2021 CFL season and also predict the awards that are going to be given out during Grey Cup week. But really quickly before we get started, if you want to support the show, the best way to do it is by hitting the like button and subscribing to Hutsy's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. I greatly appreciate it. And with that said, let's get into my Grey Cup playoff predictions. So we're just going to jump right into it. Two amazing matchups. Honestly, went back and forth all week about who I was going to take in these games. Just the slightest of margins between these two teams, sets of teams this year. But we're going to start with the Eastern semifinal between Montreal and Hamilton, where I think two key injuries I've been watching all week to see if there's any kind of clarification whether or not they're going to play. And those are two wide receivers, Eugene Lewis for the Montreal Alouettes, who finished, I believe he was second or third in the league in receiving yards this year. Really key part of that offense, obviously. And then Braylon Addison, who missed most of the season, but just got lifted off the 6-game injured list early this week. So speculation began about whether or not he was going to play. But based on what the two key stakeholders in the situation have said for both of these teams, GM Danny Machocha for the Alouettes said Eugene Lewis is likely going to play. And then head coach Orlando Steinauer for the Hamilton Tiger Cats have said Braylon Addison is very doubtful to play this week. So based on that information, I think these two teams are just so close. And I think having Eugene Lewis in the fold for the Alouettes and not having Braylon Addison, even though he hasn't been there all season, I think having him back would have been a big boost for this Tiger Cats team. I think that having Eugene Lewis back in the lineup is going to be huge for these Alouettes offense, and it could push them over the edge for them to win this game. I think that the Alouettes are playing really well right now, notwithstanding the last week of the regular season when they completely blew that lead to Ottawa. But I think a lot of that was due to fluky fumbles by a backup running back that really will not be seeing the field too much this week in Jeshurun Antwi. So going to be really interesting to see who shows up in terms of for the Alouettes in this game, because they've been a pretty inconsistent team all year, except for the offensive side of the ball, where offensively they were the most arguably consistent team in the league outside of Winnipeg this year. So even though I would usually take Hamilton in a situation like this because they are playing at home, and this pick is probably going to come back to bite me in the ass, I am going to take the Montreal Alouettes to win this game. I think they have a better formula for winning games at this point than the Tiger Cats do. The Tiger Cats, they've just kind of been making it up as the season's gone on this year. They don't really have a core set of guys that they really revolve around on offense. They've just kind of been like, who's stepping up this week kind of thing. And I think the Alouettes have had those guys all season long. William Stanback, Eugene Lewis, Jake Weineke, all three key guys have produced week after week this season for this team. So I think that I trust them more to produce in this game. And the fact that the Tiger Cats have not played Trevor Harris this season is also a big factor. I think having that familiarity, even though they did play them back in the 2019 East semifinal when they were East final when they was playing with Edmonton, I think that the fact that they haven't played against this Alouettes team with Trevor Harris at the helm is going to play a factor. And I think that the Alouettes, because of that, are going to squeak out a close victory here. I think their defense plays well enough to keep Hamilton down for a lot part of this game, and I think the Alouettes create more big plays, and they ultimately find a way to squeak out a really close one at Tim Hortons Field and get their first playoff victory since 2014. Then in the other semifinal between the Saskatchewan Roughriders and Calgary Stampeders at Mosaic Stadium in Regina, another really close game, and if you look at the season series, the 2-1 season series, and the margin that these games were decided, man, it's close, and there's just so much that you have to take into consideration when deciding who to pick in this game. And honestly, I thought I was going to take the Roughriders just because of home field, but I think that there's a lot of other things that are also in play here. I think Calgary has been the better team the second half of the season, even though Saskatchewan has been winning games as well. I think Calgary has really rounded into form and has improved more than any team in the second half of this CFL season. And Bo Levi-Mitchell, I trust him over Cody Fajardo in this game, even though Fajardo's had a better season quarterback-wise. I think Bo Levi-Mitchell has played his better weeks in the second half of the season as well. And I think that addition of Reggie Bagleton could be gigantic in deciding where the Saskatchewan attention goes in terms of coverage. The last time they played, they did not have Bagleton in the lineup. So I'm really interested to see who wins that matchup. And if Bagleton or Kamar Jordan, all these depth guys, if it opens up these plays for these depth guys in this receiving core. And I also trust that Kadeem Carey has had a very consistent week-to-week performance this year at running back for the Stampeders. So I'm going to take the Stampeders to win a road game. I mean, I'm taking both road games this week, road teams this week. It's going to be really fascinating to see how that turns out for me. But honestly, I think that when I think this through, I think Calgary has a massive experience advantage in terms of the quarterback, the coaching scenario as well, in terms of the Dickinson Bowl here. Dave Dickinson has more experience in the playoffs in terms of a head coach than Craig Dickerson, and I think that's going to play a factor. And Calgary just seems like they're on a mission. I mean, played really well the second half of the season, and I think that's going to play a huge role. But I will say Saskatchewan has just as good of a chance of winning this game. It's honestly flip a coin for both of these games, but I think Calgary comes out on the right side in the end. Now that sets up an East final between the Montreal Alouettes and the Toronto Argonauts. And this is not the East final I had going into the season. I had Hamilton going all the way to the Grey Cup and Montreal being knocked out by Toronto in the semifinal. So it's going to be interesting to see how this game turns out. The Argonauts having kind of this magical season this year where I think a lot of their games could have went either way, but they were able to come out a lot on top in those close games, especially those two games against Hamilton that were really tight early this season. And I think for the Alouettes, it's been a really up and down season, but like I said, I think they have that formula to consistently put up offense in games. Trevor Harris, this is his first time playing against the Argos this season, and I think that's going to play a factor like it did, in my eyes, against Hamilton the previous week. I really don't know who to pick in this game. If you put a gun to my head, I'm going to say the Alouettes come out on top because I trust William Stanback to have give that balance for the Alouettes offense in that game. And I think that the Alouettes find a way to win those couple road games. I think they have the formula, like I said, to do it. And they get to the Grey Cup and win the East. And then for the West, I have the Winnipeg Blue Bombers hosting the Calgary Stampeders. And this is a great matchup. Honestly, we saw them play a great game early this season where Calgary really should have come out on top. Rene Paredes with the rare missed field goal. I think the guy was like 95% on the year, and that was one of the field goals he missed. So really tight game the first time these teams played, and then the second time these guys played was the last week of the regular season, which was not a very entertaining game, and it was a nothing game at all. So, going to be interested to see how it plays out with the third time they're playing with everything on the line. I think Calgary is really one of the only teams in the league this year that has proven that they can match the physicality up front of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, which you really have to do to be successful against them. So I think that they're going to give them a really good game regardless, keep it close regardless. But I'm really interested to see how many plays Bo Levi Mitchell makes against this Winnipeg pass defense that has been very opportunistic again this year, but also extremely stingy, really low in terms of yards allowed. This is a different defense than they were in 2019, where they were a team that would take the ball away a lot, but they actually did allow a lot of pass yards in that Grey Cup winning season. But this defense is just an all-timer, and I think that is going to be a big factor. I think it's going to be another lower scoring game between these two sides. And I think Winnipeg squeaks it out on a field goal, 4-point game, something in that range, and they get to the Grey Cup. And then for my projected Grey Cup between Montreal and Winnipeg, Montreal's first time at the Grey Cup since the Anthony Calvillo era, if I remember correctly. They've really struggled as a franchise since Calvillo retired, but this year, bringing it back to prominence with my predictions. But I'm going to say their run ends here with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers capturing their second straight Grey Cup. I think that Montreal is going to give them another good game, and they have that formula, like I said, that is physical up front to really give them balance that's necessary to set up play-action passes and make big plays down the field against this Winnipeg defense. But I think ultimately this Winnipeg team is just too good, too well-rounded, and I think they're going to be ready. They're going to be pretty healthy going into the postseason, and they're going to be lined up to go back-to-back here, and ultimately I think that's what they're going to do. I think, honestly, you'd kind of be a fool if you're not taking Winnipeg to win the whole thing right now, just based on what we've seen the whole regular season. But again, anything can happen, and I'm really excited to see what happens these Grey Cup playoffs. Now let's go over the CFL Awards and who I think are going to take home each honor. We just got notified of the nominees for each division, so we're just going to go through them here. Most outstanding player, I don't think there's much drama here. It's between William Stanback and Zach Collaros. And Zach Collaros, I think, is going to win it. I think that's a pretty easy one. I think Stanback, even though I think he's had maybe the most outstanding season, I think still most valuable kind of plays a factor in this award and how it's handed out. And Kolaris has been in the league for a long time, had a lot of really good seasons. But this year, it's all about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and they really just ran ransom through the regular season this year. And Kolaris was honestly just a huge part of it, and I think he takes home the award quite easily in this vote. For most outstanding defensive player, Simone Lawrence for the East Division versus Adam Bighill for the West Division. I predicted Adam Bighill to win this award in the preseason before the season's even started, and I'm going to take Bighill to win it again here. Even though I think Simone may have had a better box score statistics this season, I think that Bighill has really been the captain of that amazing defense that has been one of the most historically great defenses in the CFL this season. And I think that that is going to play a big role in deciding the votes of some of these, whoever decides these awards. But I think that Bighill ultimately brings it home. For most outstanding Canadian, we have the unlikely matchup between Lions linebacker Bo Lacombo and Alouettes defensive lineman David Menard, who was basically a rotational defensive lineman that put up a lot of numbers this year. And in this one, I'm going to take Lacombo. I think he was just a stat sheet stuffer this year. And the guy that's really made a huge improvement from previous seasons that I saw him. He's been a starter in the league in the past, but he's never really been the impact player that he was this year. Just all around the ball and making a lot of splash plays. And he really, like I said, he really filled the box score. So I think he's ultimately going to win this award. But great season from Menard as well. But I'm going to take Lacombo here. And then for most outstanding offensive lineman, I actually had this exact prediction in my preseason predictions. Brandon Revenberg of the Hamilton Tiger-Cats versus Stanley Bryant of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And it's got to be Stanley Bryant that wins this award. This guy has just been so consistent year after year. No disrespect to Revenberg, who's probably the best guard in the entire league. But Stanley Bryant playing that much tougher tackle position, just a dominant force. And I've said this before, I think he's probably the best player in the entire CFL. Just how consistent he's been year after year. Future Hall of Famer. Gonna probably rename this the Stanley Bryant Award, given that I think it's going to be the third time in 4 years he's going to bring home the award. And I think it's without a doubt he's going to win this one, I think. Then most outstanding special teams player here. The nominees are kicker Rene Paredes of the Calgary Stampeders, who had an incredible season, like I mentioned, I think earlier, 95% around there for kicking field goals this season, versus Devontae Dedmon, an outstanding kick returner. And this one, there's really no doubt. No disrespect to Paredes, but when a kick returner has as good of a season as Dedmon had this year, he's going to take home the award, and I think he's a shoo-in to win it. And I think there's just really little drama surrounding this one. And then finally, Coach of the Year. I think this one's the most likely to not go the way of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The nominees are Mike O'Shea, head coach of Winnipeg, versus Toronto's Ryan Dinwiddie, rookie head coach, who did an outstanding job this season. So he has a little bit of a narrative advantage. And I think with a lot of these Coach of the Year awards in sports, there is an advantage to being a guy that's not completely established, and you kind of make this surprising run and weren't expected to. Maybe Dinwiddie wins the award, but I'm going to go with O'Shea to win it, just based on how consistent this team was week to week this year. Really just made the rest of the league look incompetent most of the season, and that's why I think he's going to win this award. And then my award predictions for the Grey Cup game itself. MOP, I'm going with Kenny Lawler, wide receiver for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Don't really feel too confident either way between him or Zach Collaros, but I think ultimately, Collaros or Lawler is going to take home this award if the Winnipeg Blue Bombers win the Grey Cup. And I think Lawler, in this case, makes a couple big plays, scores a couple touchdowns in this game. We've seen a lot of receivers win this award in years past in the CFL, so I think he takes home that award. And then for most outstanding Canadian in the Grey Cup, I'm going with another receiver, and that's Nick Dembski, who's had a really great season, was on a 1,000-yard pace this year, going to have his career high in receiving yards in just the 14-game season here. So, I mean, really interesting to see who wins the Grey Cup this year. And with that said, just let me know in the comment section, who do you have winning the Grey Cup this year? I mean, no judgment from me. There's a lot of different options, and I think a lot of these matchups, like I said, are just incredibly close, and I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section. And with that said, enjoy the games, everybody. Take care of yourself. Peace.